What's up, Longhorns? Texas fans, we really need to sit down and have a serious talk right now. How are we feeling right now, guys? I know some of you are feeling pretty good because, let's be honest, the Citrus Bowl was pretty sweet. Taking Michigan to the woodshed, being a Big Ten team especially, was fun. I know some of you, on the other hand, are still frustrated, and you're unhappy that you didn't make it back to the college football playoffs. I saw some of the meltdowns happening on the message boards. So we're going to talk through all of it today, because I think you guys should be maybe a little bit happier than you realize, especially about where you guys currently are. It's not just one or two things. There are 4 very important things that I think you guys should be happy about right now going into the next season. And we're going to talk about those 4 things at this time because they matter for the future of the program. Stick around. At the end, we're going to talk about a game-changing player who I'm hearing is very likely headed your way. I think he's a major upgrade and very underrated. So the first thing I want to talk with you guys about is the college football playoff. The fact that they are going to expand later this month. It's looking pretty likely that they'll go from 12 teams to 16 teams. So the good news is, in future years, a 3-loss Texas team won't be punished for having the courage to play Ohio State in their opening game. This is massive because NIL has really balanced the field. You no longer have 1 or 2 teams dominating and heavy favorites. And this year even, you had teams like Texas, Notre Dame, BYU, maybe even Vandy, who could have made legit runs in the playoff. I personally think Texas would have done really well in the playoff. But the system as it stands right now just wasn't built for the modern SEC grinder. We have to be honest about the math. When you have a 12-team model, the committee is forced to split hairs. They're looking for reasons to exclude teams rather than include them. And when you play a schedule as brutal as the one Texas played, those 3 losses become a weapon used against you. However, in a 16-team model, that entire dynamic flips upside down. Suddenly, strength of schedule becomes your greatest asset rather than your biggest liability. The committee stops punishing you for losing close games to Titans, and they start rewarding you for having the guts to schedule them in the first place. Think about what this means for your non-conference strategy moving forward. Right now, ADs are terrified to schedule home-and-home series with other Blue Bloods. They want the easy wins to pad the resume. But with 16 spots at the table, Texas can continue to book these massive premier matchups without fear. You can go into Columbus and play in the Horseshoe. This change basically ensures that the Texas program is resistant or safe from bad luck. It removes the randomness of the committee room, and it ensures that if you have a top-tier roster, you're going to get your shot at the title. But even with a better playoff format, none of that matters if the conference you play in is falling apart from the inside. You can have the best path to the championship in the world. But if the teams around you are soft, that weakness eventually infects your program too. Therefore, we have to look at the embarrassing reality of what just happened to the rest of the SEC. Now, really quick, before I get to that, this is our new SEC football channel. If you saw us on College Football Addiction, none of that content is really changing. We're just kind of rehoming it here for the SEC specifically. If you enjoy the video or if any of it makes you feel a certain type of emotion, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about is how you guys look compared to the rest of the SEC. The SEC bowl record right now is an abysmal 4-9, with 2 of those wins being guaranteed because it was 2 SEC teams playing each other in the playoff. So you had many teams with players opting out or just not caring. But Texas showed up, and they took care of business against Michigan. You guys didn't have a ton of opt-outs or players taking plays off, which means the culture of your program is in a great place. It also means that next year, you guys are starting from a really good spot. A far better place, I'd say, than most other SEC schools. We really need to pause for a moment and appreciate how rare that is in the modern era. Look around at the wreckage of the other SEC bowl games. You saw teams that supposedly have championship DNA absolutely quit on their coaches. You saw star players announcing their draft declarations 2 days before kickoff. You saw lineups filled with third-string guys who looked like they didn't even want to be there. It was a complete embarrassment for the conference that prides itself on meaning more. The narrative is that The SEC is the undisputed king of college football. Well, guys, that took a massive hit this postseason. But amidst that disaster, Texas stood completely apart. Sarkisian had your guys ready to play violent football. They treated the Citrus Bowl like it was a national championship. And ultimately, that's not something you can fake. That's the direct result of a locker room that respects the coaching staff. It's the result of leaders on the team demanding accountability from younger guys. When you see other programs having to beg their players to finish the season, you realize how fragile their culture actually is. But at Texas, the standard was the standard. You finish what you start. You wear the burnt orange with pride, regardless of if it's a playoff game or a bowl game. That kind of discipline certainly carries over into the offseason. It means your winter workouts are going to be more intense than everyone else's. It means that your spring ball is going to be sharper. While other SEC coaches are scrambling to re-recruit their own rosters and fix a broken locker room, Texas is just building. You're stacking bricks on a foundation that is already cured and solid. The next thing I want to talk with you guys about is how you guys started playing your best football at the end of the year. You know, you lost the season opener to Ohio State on opening weekend, and I really don't even hold that against you guys. That Ohio State team is always in the running for a national championship. You guys played them hard, but then you lost to that Florida team, which was certainly the low point of the season. But that Florida team was probably a little underrated. At the time you guys played them, they probably had a top 5 defense. Now, by the end of the year, they were decimated by injuries and they were getting blown out on their home field. But with the SEC, timing is everything. And you guys then lost to the eventual SEC champion, Georgia Bulldogs. But you finished strong after that, and you played your best game of the year versus Texas A&M, who everyone thought at the time was a world beater. We need to contextualize that Florida loss because people are using it to drag you guys. Context matters in college football more than any other sport. When you walked into the Swamp, the Florida team was mostly healthy and still pretty hungry. They were desperate. Their defense was playing out of their minds. They were creating pressure and forcing turnovers at an elite rate. Now, it's very easy to look at their record in November and laugh. But the team you played in that specific moment was a completely different animal. Injuries later stripped them down. But you guys did face them at their peak. So while it looks like a bad loss on paper, the film tells a little bit different story. And then you look at the Georgia game. It wasn't close, I get it. But losing to the eventual SEC champion on the road is nothing to be ashamed of. Georgia is the standard right now. They are the measuring stick that everyone else is chasing. But the most encouraging thing of all of this is how you responded to that adversity. Most teams would have folded after a couple of setbacks. They would have let the disappointment spiral into a 3 or 4 game losing streak. However, Texas got better. You saw the offensive line start to gel. You saw the secondary start to communicate much better. The team that walked off the field against Michigan was 10 times better than the team that walked off the field against Ohio State. That trajectory is what you want to see. You want to be the team that nobody wants to play in January. And that is exactly what Texas became. But showing improvement is one thing. Proving dominance is something else entirely. You can talk about getting better all you want, but until you prove it against a team that is actually elite, it's just talk. Therefore, the most critical data point of the entire season happened in the final week, which brings me to the next thing I want to talk about. You guys beating your big rivals in Texas A&M. That team was good this year. They were undefeated at the time. They ended up having a very close loss to Miami in the playoff, and look at what Miami has done. There's a good chance they make it to the national championship. This is definitely the best A&M team that I can remember in modern history. And look at how much they're spending on NIL. They're spending so much that they can take starting O-linemen from Alabama. But guess what? You guys beat them. And it wasn't a fluke. You looked really good doing it. And you probably played your best game of the year. That win can't be overstated. It wasn't just a rivalry win. It was a statement to the world about who runs the state of Texas. Think about the narrative going into that game. Back up just a little bit. The media was crowning A&M. They were talking about their relentless defense. They were talking about how their NIL war chest had bought them a super team. And Texas walked in and absolutely dismantled them. You exposed their secondary. You controlled the line of scrimmage against that vaunted defensive front. You made them look slow and confused. That win proved that the culture still beats cash many times. It proved that coaching still matters more than recruiting rankings. Mike Elko had that team playing at an insanely high level all year. They bullied almost everyone they played. But when they ran into the Longhorns, they hit a brick wall. That creates a massive momentum swing for recruiting. Kids see that. Recruits see that. When an undecided five-star looks at these two programs, he sees one that spent a lot of money to go 11-1. And he sees another one that develops players to win the games that actually matter. You reset the hierarchy of the rivalry instantly. But even with that massive win, you have to look at the roster holes that still exist. You can celebrate the wins, but you can't ignore the fact that running game for Texas needs more juice. So as I promised earlier, it looks like you guys are trending towards landing a game-changing player that is Arizona State running back Raleek Brown. This kid would make a really good number one running back and would be a major upgrade for you guys. He had 1,141 yards and averaged 6.1 yards per carry. His PFF scores were through the roof this season. And not only that, he's a reliable back that can catch the ball out of the backfield too. You have to understand how perfectly this kid fits into Sarkisian's scheme. Sark loves running backs who are versatile weapons. He doesn't just want a guy who can run between the tackles. He wants a guy he can line up in the slot. He wants a guy he can motion out wide to create mismatches against linebackers. Raleek Brown is exactly that type of player. He has elite hands for a running back. He runs routes like a wide receiver. But when you hand him the ball, he has the vision and the burst to take it 70 yards to the house. Again, averaging over 6 yards per carry in a major conference is elite production. That means he's constantly keeping the offense ahead of the chains. He eliminates second and long situations. And his PFF grade, which is opponent adjusted, confirms that this isn't just about empty stats. He's breaking tackles. He's creating yards after contact. He's making defenders miss in a phone booth. Adding a weapon like this to an offense like yours is unfair. It gives your quarterback a safety valve that can turn a check down into a touchdown. It forces defenses to respect the run, which opens up the deep shots for your wide receivers. This is the kind of aggressive roster management that wins championships. You identify a specific need and you go out and you get the best player possible that's available to fill it. So when you combine the playoff expansion, the culture you've built, the momentum for the A&M and Michigan wins, and this potential addition, the future is bright in my opinion for Texas football. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I appreciate you guys watching today. And again, make sure that you are subscribed to SEC Football Addiction for more nonstop SEC coverage.